despite, I don't know, this could be even worse than that horrible production I had to show you, but we have an old black and white film version of View from the Bridge, which we found, which I'm going to show you a clip of. I have never seen it. It could be awful. It could be brilliant, but we don't know. We're going to watch it, some of it to assess it, to break up the triple. Otherwise, we will all collapse in a heap. Right, so, where did your last notes come? On page 15? Or were you on?
Yeah, 15.
Okay. So, obviously, they're all getting very emotional. Eddie's all getting upset. And he obviously can't believe, he says, and she's saying, you never guessed that you would ever grow up. Right, shh. Everyone needs to listen. That you would ever grow up. It's the third thing Eddie says on page 15. And so it's actually seeing her and realising that she is now a kind of a woman, and he's getting upset as he thinks about her leaving. So it's this realisation that she is full grown. Realisation that she is full grown, because he still treats her, doesn't he, like a child. Okay, right. And then he wants to get his cigar, and he's left it, and he's about to go and pick it up, having to stay there, I'll get it for you. What do you notice about Catherine? And she's very attentive. I'm sure you rush around doing things for your father every 3 seconds, but no, you stay there, I want to get it. So she's very attentive, isn't she? Again, this all denotes her affection for her uncle/father figure. And of course, when she goes out to get the cigar, obviously Minna uses that as an opportunity to have the husband and wife together on stage alone. So, and you see immediately, he turns to, so she goes out, and it says here, Eddie turns to Beatrice, who has been avoiding his gaze. Now, why would Beatrice be avoiding his gaze?
It's a realisation, something.
Well, perhaps Beatrice feels uncomfortable with this situation. She's starting to realise things, or she's feeling uncomfortable about his feelings for Catherine, which is starting to be seen. Yeah.
Can we slow down a bit? And also, can you go back to what you said about stay there? I'll get it.
Okay. The fact that she rushes off to get him the cigar shows you she's very attentive. That's ATTENTIVE. And of course, if you're attentive to someone's needs, it means that you're showing how affectionate, how you're very, very fond of them. So she clearly feels a lot for him, and so she wants to make him happy. And so she goes off to get the cigar, and then of course Beatrice is avoiding his gaze. So she clearly is starting to feel uncomfortable, because in the scene that we just looked at last lesson, we know that Eddie is very moved, he's getting very emotional, almost tearful. And it's almost as though Beatrice is watching this scene unfold and thinking, that's kind of not quite a natural response to this situation. She doesn't understand why he's so funny about Catherine going off to work, why he seems to get so upset about it all. Eddie is quite confrontational. What are you so mad? Why are you mad at me lately? He's angry. He's confrontational. He's he's demanding answers from his wife. Okay, and as soon as he says that, she gets up and starts clearing the dishes. Why does she do that? Yeah, to avoid him, so she's being evasive. She doesn't want to have this argument, does she? So she's being evasive. EVASIVE.
There's not enough space to write on this.
Okay, because normally if you're having an argument with someone, you're like, why are you doing this? You're back, and and you're kind of arguing, aren't you? She's like, no, I'm not mad, you're mad, but she's running off and she's doing something else to try and avoid the situation. She's certainly not going to look him in the eye and say, I don't like the way you look at our niece. She's not telling him that, is she? Well, because she doesn't like the way he looks at their niece. She's starting to think, because it's almost like some things she can't confront that because it's so awful.
But it's only really coming up now.
She's starting to perhaps be more aware of it or have more situations. Okay, right, so she's getting quite evasive, but she's also angry. Catherine's come back in with obviously the cigar and matches. Here, I'll light it for you. Okay, right. So she's lighting the cigarette for him. Why is that important?
like she's attentive again, like it's like a natural, like it's like my natural, like you wouldn't.
She's trying to please him, absolutely. So she's sweet-natured and loving. But thank you. A cigar is phallic. Yes. So that image is obviously underlines perhaps the sexual.
How do you spell phallic?
What's funny?
It means like an innuendo, basically.
Phallic, like a phallus. Yes.
That's what it's called. She's lighting
It's like an
A
innuendo.
cigar, the shape of a cigar. She's lighting the cigar. It has sexual undertones. Yes.
How do you spell phallic?
Phallic. PHALLIC. Okay. So, and obviously we see her as wanting to please him and lighting the cigar. And then, of course, that's all that. And obviously she's busily clearing the tables and she's going out to help the... right. Now, right at the bottom of the page, where Alfieri comes in, remember his role is very much like a Greek chorus. He narrates, he comments on the action of the play. Could you underline this? He was as good a man as he had to be in a life that was hard and even. Could you underline that? Now, why is that important? Why is it important that we have Alfieri coming on stage, and again, you're trying to imagine this on stage, coming in and saying words like that? Because we're dealing with a particular situation with our protagonist, but Alfieri is saying, actually, Eddie was a pretty good guy. In his life, in his situation, he was pretty much a decent guy. Why is that important when we see what we see about Eddie?
Because that's how much he changes.
Yeah, because it's saying that even though clearly what's going on is a bit kind of, unnatural, he was a well-respected bloke. He was a decent guy. You know, he's in his life up to this point, he's never done anything terrible. He's he's a straight-up guy. He's well-respected. So it's got to give us that perspective, Eddie. Yeah.
Doesn't change his character though.
Well, yeah, none of his characters change. That unfortunately, this deeply flawed and unnatural desire has changed him. But other than that, he was a decent guy.
But then it's also like we only known Eddie as the weird guy who likes his niece.
Exactly.
We haven't seen him like.
So it gives you more balanced perspective. It's like you see that he's more than just this guy that's got weird feelings for his niece.
He's a freak. I'm sorry. That's not normal.
No, it's not. But for example,
It's incest.
no. But if you imagine, like I'm me, obviously, and I'm a teacher, and then suddenly I get some weird addiction. I become a heroin addict or something, for example. Right. So I'm me. I've done my little job and I've lived my life at this point, and then I get this weird drug addiction. And I turn into this really weird person. But I was still an okay person before that happened, before this weird addiction or twist or something occurred. So, you see what I mean? So he's not all bad. Otherwise, if you just saw him with all these freaky things...
It's like you gain feelings for a student, but then
No.
it could be like,
Yeah, but I mean, you could argue that it was this one thing in his life that screwed it up. Other than this, he was a decent bloke. And then this weird kind of, as I say, relationship developed. And we've got to have that perspective, because it's too easy to just think, oh my God, as you say, what a complete pervert, what a creep, he's an appalling human being, he should be, damned for all eternity. He was a decent guy before all this occurred, and I think that's what Miller's trying to suggest. You can't see things just from one sort of narrow perspective. Okay, right, turn to the next page. So we now have, obviously, the arrival of the cousins, and that's hugely important. Marco first, look at any stage direction describing him. Square-built peasant of 32, suspicious, tender, and quiet voice. So obviously this is the brother. So within that description of him, because obviously if I was a director and putting on this play, I would look at Miller's directions and try and think about who I was going to cast. So Marcus is a sensitive, thoughtful, and strong individual. So sensitive, thoughtful, and strong. He's one of these kind of almost strong silent types.
What's a sensitive, thoughtful,
Strong. Okay, and so they come in, and obviously they come into the house. In the middle of the page, you, Marco? Marco. See, they're not having long conversations. It's quite short and sweet. But yeah, you're the cousin. Come in, blah blah. So they obviously.